Welcome, Hokie fans, to another exciting edition of Gobbler Country Live. I'm your host, Roy Hatfield from Gobbler Country. And this week, we have a very special guest, John Laser, the new voice of the Hokies, taking over for the beloved Bill Roth. John was nice enough to sit down with me and give me a couple words. And without further ado, here is John Laser, the voice of the Hokies. This is Roy Hatfield with Gobbler Country. I'm talking to the new voice of the Hokies, John Laser. John, walk me through your career path. Tell me from your college days to present.
Yeah, absolutely, Roy. And great to be with you, first of all. I graduated from Brown College, which is a broadcast-specific college in the suburbs of Minneapolis, where I'm from. And about that same time, took an internship with KFAN Sports Radio, which at the time still is actually the home of the Minnesota Vikings, Minnesota Timberwolves, among other things. And phenomenal experience for me. Allowed to work in a number of different sports, a number of different roles, and everything really blossomed from there. That was back in 2001, and became an employee actually of the station a couple of years into it. Wound up staying there until about 2005. But in the meantime, I got my first baseball play-by-play job in a summer collegiate woodback league called the Northwoods League with the St. Cloud River Bats. I was there for 2 seasons, then worked a season of independent baseball with the St. Paul Saints. Got into affiliated ball for the first time in 2006 with a Diamondbacks affiliate out in Yakima, Washington, actually. Moving level to level in baseball pretty much year to year at that point. Moved out to Pennsylvania the next year with the Pirates AA team. Then down to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina in 2008 with the Braves Advanced A team. Then the Rays AA team in Montgomery, Alabama in 2009. And then in 2010, I moved to Richmond, where I still am with the Flying Squirrels. And periodically through that, I was employed by Charleston Southern as their football and basketball announcer in 2008 to 2009. And Virginia Commonwealth University basketball, VCU, of course, is better known, over the last 5 years as both a women's basketball radio announcer and a men's television basketball announcer.
Wow, so you actually called some Mermen games.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go. It's happened. I've called it at some point.
Correct. Let me ask you, who approached you about the Virginia Tech job?
I actually approached them. I realized when Bill was leaving, and I've known Bill a bit over the last few years, primarily through my work at Fox Sports 910 in Richmond, where he would be a frequent guest, and then we got to meet personally. And I was made aware about the same time everybody else was that he was departing for UCLA, and was fairly shocked by that. Of course, he was such an institution at Virginia Tech. I don't think any of us really envisioned a day where that wouldn't be the case. But after that wore off, I recognized that there were another number of pathways that I had to Virginia Tech through my connections here in Richmond, at VCU most notably, and started to have people that I knew were familiar with Whit Babcock and some of the other members of the athletic department, get in touch with them on my behalf. And things just started to roll from there. I also worked the IMG side of it with Chris Ferris. And if you're in this industry long enough, it becomes pretty small, Roy, as you know. And a number of people that I worked with knew Chris, even though I didn't know him directly. And I went through the application channels like anybody else. And a couple of weeks later, I was informed that they wanted to conduct a Skype interview with me, and the different levels started to unfold from there.
Well, you mentioned Brown as a broadcasting-specific institution. When you were growing up, who were your idols as broadcasters? Who did you like to listen to?
You know, growing up for me, Roy, I was a huge Cubs fan because I originally was from Chicago, even though I only lived there for 3 years before relocating to Iowa, Minnesota. So I was really captured. Cable television wasn't at all what it is now with the hundreds or even thousands of different channels. And WGN, as one of the super stations, was a channel that I could get even when I moved away from Chicago, and then when I moved away from my friends in Iowa to Minnesota, and I would be kept company by Harry Carey and Steve Stone. So I really looked up to Harry. And actually, even before that, when Harry was in St. Louis, my dad was originally from St. Louis, as was my grandfather, and they were huge Harry Carey and Jack Buck guys. I was very struck by Ernie Harwell, not just his on-air demeanor, which is, of course, Hall of Fame caliber and legendary, but I had a chance to meet him a couple of different times and certainly lived up to that on-air personality as just the Southern gentleman, and I always appreciated that about him. Of course, I'm a fan of the classic Terry Callis, and I know I'm giving baseball announcers here, Vince Scully. On the football side, Wayne Larrabee has really been the guy that I've tried to emulate in terms of his delivery and his cadence, along with Ray Christensen, who used to be at the University of Minnesota. Those are just a number. I think like a lot of aspiring broadcasters who are interested in the field, Roy, I would scan the dial and listen to a number of different people, and that's continued for me to this day as I monitor a lot of different broadcasts with all this current available technology.
Sure, absolutely. Tell me about the first time you met Mike Burnip.
Well, I actually met him not necessarily in person, although I know in today's cyber age, I guess it counts that way. But Mike was, fortunately for me, part of the panel that interviewed me via Skype, and I actually did that interview from my hotel room in Portland, Maine, while traveling with the squirrels. And I was glad he was in there because I knew chemistry between us was going to be a big part of it. I had read up a little bit on him, and I had some good friends in Richmond that are good friends with Mike, so I thought I had a pretty good idea about, what were the things that he was interested in his broadcast demeanor, but not only that, who he is off the air. And, he asked one of the first questions to me in the Skype interview, and I came back with a response about tennis, which I know he loved, and cracked him up. And that was the first time I met him there. And then actually the next round of interviews, which were conducted in person in Blacksburg, which was about a week or so after that Skype interview, Mike was the first person I met with in the morning. And we spent about an hour together. And I don't know if this was by design or not. I don't think it was meant to be this way. But as I went through Buzz Williams and Frank Beamer and Whit Babcock and everybody else, the rest of the day, Mike actually came with me, which I took as a good sign. And we basically wound up hanging out for 5 or 6 hours. So yeah, we got off to a great start in our relationship, and I'm really looking forward to that expanding.
Yeah, he seems really easy to get to know. I mean, he has that down-home folksy quality. I'm sure it's not a challenge for you to become friends. I think the chemistry is definitely something that our readers and our fans are curious about. What are your personal goals as the new voice of Virginia Tech?
I think coming into Virginia Tech, everybody's been asking, what they're going to be like to follow, a living legend and an icon, and what Bill was and what he meant to the university. And I think it's important for me to recognize that coming in, that nobody's ever going to take the place of Bill Roth. Nobody's ever going to beat him. But at the same time, he set a nice foundation in Blacksburg and throughout Hokie Nation, which spreads so far away from Blacksburg at this point, that there is the opportunity for someone else to come in and have success. And I think that's going to be my plan. I'm not planning on coming in and being Bill Roth. What I do want to provide, though, is what Bill did, and that's the enjoyment that fans had in the broadcast, the passion and enthusiasm that he brought to it that really brought those games to life. And I believe I have the abilities on the air to do that, and I'm coming in confidently. Myself, personally, I just hope to find a place where I can become a big part of the community in Blacksburg. I've heard so many tremendous things about the vibrancy of the college town, and it's been a number of years, Roy. I fail to admit here how many years, but since I've been around that type of environment, and I'm just really excited to really find a home now that I've found my dream job and a destination type job.
No, absolutely. I think that you'll find, Blacksburg is definitely one of the best places I've ever lived. I've lived up and down the East Coast, and I think that you'll find it's very welcoming. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to raise a family. You're not going to really talk to anyone. I should probably work for the Blacksburg Chamber of Commerce because I have that much love for that place. It's a great place. Have you met Frank Beamer yet personally, and what was that like?
Yeah, I did actually, Roy. He was part of, like I mentioned, the series of interviews that I did the first time when I came down and was invited down to Blacksburg. And Frank, it was actually Coach Beamer was actually the last person on my stop that day. And I like to tell the story. I was a little bit late getting there because I had spent over my allotted time with Whit Babcock because we were having a good conversation. So by the time I got there, Frank's longtime assistant Diana was showing me in, and she said, "Yeah, you have to understand, a fan just came by, and Coach Beamer didn't know what you looked like. Obviously, we've never met before, and he mistook the fan that was just trying to take a picture of the area." And he said to him, "Are you the next voice of the Hokies?" And the guy responded with, "No, I just want a picture of the office." So I kind of set an uneasy mood to it and took away some of that, wow, I'm about to meet a legend intimidation. And we just sat and had a great conversation. Dr. John Boleen was in there, as was Mike Burnip, and it was more of a group discussion. But I felt at ease with him, I really did. And I know I've heard that from countless people in this process that's legitimately the way he is. And I couldn't have been more comfortable, so that was awesome.
Have you ever been to a Virginia Tech football game?
Yeah, I actually have. I've been to a couple. The first one I ever went to, we were on a college football tour with some of my friends, and we came to the 2007 game, the Thursday night game that was played in that torrential downpour between the Hokies and Boston College, and unfortunately that one didn't turn out in favor of the Hokies with Matt Ryan leading the charge for Boston
Yeah,
College.
I was actually at that game, and then I actually followed it up just to complete my season. I went to the ACC championship game in Jacksonville, where we pretty much I don't want to say destroyed, but we pretty much got our revenge down there in Jacksonville. That was probably one of the worst environments at Lane Stadium I've ever been to.
I'll tell you, it was my first time really in Blacksburg, and we were younger at the time. My friends and I were coming in. We heard read so many great things about the environment. Those certainly lived up to being true, even though, like I said, it was miserable in terms of the rain. Just consistently, I've never seen it pour that consistently at a game, first half and second half. But then after the game, you could just sense the melancholy throughout the entire area. There was nothing going on in terms of anybody being out and about or
yeah, that was
you could feel the area-wide depression for sure.
That was a heartbreaker. I think Matty Ice drove him down there late in the fourth, and kind of not a Hail Mary, but darn near. I think it was like a 40-yard completion to win the game. That was a tough beat. I'll give you that one.
But that wasn't the last time I was there. I was at a game a couple of years ago, the Florida State game. Thursday nighter again, that I flew up with one of the Squirrels owners for Brian Callahan, brought me up, and that was a great time. Logan Thomas was quarterback at the time, but that was the last game I've actually been out of Lane.
Awesome. What do you see in store for Virginia Tech this season?
In terms of football, I'm excited, to be honest with you. That's what I keep talking about with people when we discuss the actual potential for this team. I think that's the big word when you discuss this team right now, is potential, because certainly there are offensive question marks, and Michael Brewer, even though this is his second season, as to whether or not he can utilize all these dynamic weapons that he has now on the offensive side, and the maturation of Isaiah and Cam and even Bucky, and what the running back depth and backfield is ultimately going to look like when things shake out. But of course, as you know, Roy, the biggest question everybody's mind is, are we going to be a snake bit with the health of the offensive line like it was last year? So, you know how that rolls if everything goes or doesn't based upon that line. So I'm really curious to see what that offense is going to look like and how potent that they can be, because, of course, on the defensive side of the ball, with just reloading, coming back with all the strength up front on the defensive front, and, of course, with Kai Shankar and some of the other dynamic players on the back end, you're going to be defensively strong. So I think it's a season where the sky's the limit. I really do. But just like every season in every football program, you go in hoping for help, and hopefully you have enough contingencies if you don't have that great help.
Well, I think every June, every program, every Division I program has the idea that it could be a special club. I think the thing that's going to dictate us. I think we're as far as ones go across the board, I think we stack up well against just about anybody. As you mentioned, we have 8 starters back on defense. There's a few questions, especially on the offensive line, surrounding the offensive line and the offensive backfield. But I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that if we can stay healthy, which is a big if, we can definitely be competitive in the Coastal. I think we could definitely make our mark. So this upcoming season, we've got the big game Monday night, Ohio State. Pre-game, 5 minutes before the kickoff, who's more nervous that night, the team or you?
Well, I think if you took a poll of all the guys, we'd probably be right there together. But as I've been telling people, Roy, it's going to be a good type of nervous for me. It's not going to be a nervous, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to handle this? It's going to be a nervous edge, and I can't believe that I've gotten here after all the work and all the years that I've put in and all the connections and networks that I've built in order for that to happen. Because, as I've said, if you're not going to rise to that moment, then it's not a job that you should be in, and it's probably not a profession that you should be in. So, yeah, I'm going to be nervous, but it's going to be the good kind of nervous that athletes get right before kickoff. So I'm going to call that a dead heat, my man. They've probably got more on the line in terms of the competition. But, yeah, I'm going to be every bit as jacked up as every Hokie on the field, I can tell you that.
I'm sure it's going to be it's going to be quite an electric atmosphere. I sadly won't be in attendance for that game, but I definitely have friends and family that'll be there. And then lastly, John, how important is this season not only for VT football but for Frank Beamer?
Well, I think it's hugely important for Frank Beamer. His legacy is always going to be his legacy at Virginia Tech, and certainly everybody recognizes that and the fact that he built the program. But I think it's personally important to him because I don't think he really enjoys people nationally and even locally thinking that the program has declined, even to the slightest degree. Not saying that that's something that I agree with at all, which you don't. But, I think that when you're a high-profile program and perception being what it is, you know how it is. College football is certainly a cutthroat business, and you've got to win. And people don't really look all that far back, particularly when it's outside of Hokie Nation. So I think he and his staff are going in recognizing that there's tremendous pressure, and right off the bat with that Ohio State game. And I think they're looking forward to rising to that. I really do, from the talks that I've had briefly, albeit with members of that staff at this point.
Oh, I definitely agree. And once again, John, thanks for joining Gobbler Country and Hokies Football Live. We really appreciate your time. And for that, we definitely want to say thank you, John. Look forward to hearing your broadcast this season, and we wish you the best.
Thank you, Roy. It's been great to get to know you and so many others in Hokie Nation over the last couple of days. I can't wait to get to Blacksburg.